Good evening, Crime Talk Patreons. Thank you for joining us here on our Patreon live show. Appreciate you being here. Hopefully you all were able to watch the last Crime Talk live that we just did for over a little over an hour. It goes by so fast. It really does. And I sometimes think, wow, that went by so fast. And it's fun. It's just fun. It's fun to talk to people that are interested in the same thing. Crime, the law, the Constitution. That's fun stuff. Let's see here. We got Raven, Cinderella, and Anne, Rachel, Mama Pink, Raven. Thanks. Winnie is adorable. She is. I appreciate that. Rachel, have you watched the Skylar Richardson trial? Some darn good defense lawyers there. I have not been able to watch the trial. Tell me what you think the defense attorneys are doing good in the case. And she was found. I know what that is. Oh, that was where she killed the baby, allegedly killed the baby. Yes, I agree. I did see that trial. Sorry, the name didn't click there for a second. That was some very good lawyering for sure. And probably the correct result. They couldn't say how the baby died under what circumstances. Her position was that it was a stillborn, and it was probably the correct result. Hopefully she learned a lot from it and will never put herself in that kind of situation again. Yes, I remember I think we brought the verdict live, and I had commentary when that case was going on. The name didn't click there for a second. So is it Tizara? I'm sorry. I know Diane, MK Crafts. Like seeing everybody here. As you know, this is your show. You all are the Patreons. You all pay for this, and I hate to say it's your show, but literally it's your show. I'll talk about anything you would like to talk about. If you don't tell me what you'd like to talk about, I'll just talk about whatever I would like to talk about, but it's probably more interesting if we talk about what you would like to talk about as well. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff, going on out there. Hopefully everyone enjoyed the show that we did last week with our guest, the death penalty mitigation expert. I just find that absolutely fascinating. I really do. I know some people are a little bored by it, but I think it's, that's what lawyers do. Lots of cases, there's not a whole lot of defense, the one that can put up to a particular charge. So really what it comes down to is negotiation. I mean, don't get me wrong. I wish I could go try every case. Like, let's go do this thing. But it's not reality. I don't know what the numbers are. 95% of most cases settle. So most of the time you're negotiating. Some days it feels like groveling, trying to convince the DAs, to do it. Back in the old days, before COVID, you could literally go and sit down next to the DA and say, we need to resolve this case. I have nowhere to be all day. I'm going to be sitting here by your side, following you around until we can get this done. And normally you could get it done. Let's see. Let's see here. Oh, I'm glad Mama Pink liked our guest. Mish Scott, do you ever get scared or uncomfortable with violent clients or clients that have been charged of violent crimes? I personally have never been concerned for my safety. Most of those clients that are charged with very serious crimes are in custody. For the most part, they're not going to try to do anything silly because guess what? You're usually the only person that's there that's actually trying to help them. They're hopefully going to listen to your advice. The only time that I ever had somebody do something stupid was I had a client years and years ago that thought it'd be really cool to bring a gun to our office meeting on a Saturday morning with his mother. And he's like, the deal's going to get better. And he put, a gun on the desk like he's supposedly going to scare me or something with that. And I said, well, that's interesting. First of all, You need to put that away. And guess what? You need to go find a new attorney because I am no longer your attorney. Thank you for coming. See you in court on Monday. I will be withdrawing. You just have to, that's just stuff like that. I had family members once in a homicide case that followed me to my car as I was walking down one aisle of the parking lot. They were in the other aisle, and as they're driving by, they're holding their finger up in the shape of like a gun, like they're going to get me. I called the DA and said, "Hey, tell your family I'm just doing my job. Let them know, etc." And the DA called me back a couple days later, like, "Hey, that family's pretty serious. Some bad cats. You may want to be careful. Do you want us to like escort you in and out of the courthouse?" I'm like, "No, thank you. Not going to look like I was intimidated or in fear in any way." And ultimately, in that particular homicide case, my client was found not guilty. And so, it's just not, people get scared. I've had death threats. Normally, I haven't had a good death threat in a while. Normally when that happens was when the newspapers were out. Not so much these days, it seems like because the news cycle's so fast these days in the digital age. But usually when it was like a dead baby case, there was a case years ago, client's child died, I think it was Christmas Eve or Christmas Day or something to that effect. And it was in the news, and it was in the news a lot for a while. And I would get calls to the office, people leaving me death threats. I heard somebody say a long time ago, don't worry about the death threats unless they sign their name or they leave their name and a callback number. Never had anybody do that, so I've never really taken it too seriously whatsoever. So, hopefully that answers your question, Mish. I'm never, and when you go to the jail and you're in a room where you can have contact with your client, there's a panic button, and I've never had to use a panic button to say, come protect me. And I've had some pretty good, loud conversations with clients over the years. And I've had the sheriff come by, I'm like, is everything okay? Yeah, everything's fine. We're just hashing this out. But I've never felt like, oh my God, I need to leave the room. I've never had a client that, I thought, oh my gosh, I need to do this. I've had, the biggest thing, clients, man, you get me out of this, I will pay you a bonus. Well, I don't want a bonus. I want what we agreed to. Just pay your bill. That's all I want you to do. Okay. That is, probably scares me more than, violent criminals is when somebody says they're going to give me a bonus. That usually means they're just completely full of it. And whatever money I've received thus far is the only money I'm going to receive any further in this entire case whatsoever. So don't tell me you're going to pay me a bonus until you paid your bill in full. Let's see here. Let's see this. Ann, question. If during the Vallow DeBell case, one of the defense attorneys wants to, they've joined them because they're separate cases for filing. They've joined them. Now the defense would ask for a severance. Can they do that, or are they stuck with each other? The answer is yes, they can always move for a severance. As you may recall, Mr. Pryor, on behalf of Chad Daybell, said that he didn't want to be joined, but Lori Vallow's attorney wanted to be joined, Mark Means. Why he would want to agree to that, I don't know why. Prosecutors like, hey, let's do one trial instead of two. Let's do this. Sounds good to me. But yes, it can still happen depending on if there is a further discovery that comes out, if there's statements that are made kind of pointing fingers. The biggest thing, obviously, the reason why there would not be a joinder of the cases or now a severance of the cases, if, for example, statements were to come out, let's say on jailhouse calls, or if there were, admissions that come out that were made by one of the co-defendants to somebody. There would be admissions. Well, those admissions will only be good to one defendant, and the prejudicial effect would be so great that the other defendant couldn't receive a fair trial. So they could ask for severance. The biggest thing for severance would be that there's inconsistent defenses in the case. So if the judge says, if the defense says, we're not going to tell you what our defense is, judge, but I'm telling you we need a severance, that means there's inconsistent theory of defenses. The judge may force their hand and say, all right, well, tell me what it is. If it's simply going to be saying, I didn't know it was another person not sitting here, then that may not be enough. But if they're actually pointing fingers at each other, then yes, severance would be, could be done. It could even be done mid-trial or during some point in the trial if evidence were to come out. I think that if from the defense perspective, you never want to go to trial with co-defendants unless you are so minor and insignificant that your name is not going to come up. And I've had that. It used to be they would indict these huge drug conspiracy cases. And, they would indict 40, 50 people all in the big conspiracy. And maybe 10 or 12 say, we're going to go to trial. And the judge says, fine, it's going to be there. And if you've got a client that is, minor, insignificant player, you're like, okay, I'll go sit with these guys. And they hear all the evidence and, as they go down the line and that defense attorney has no questions, and you just kind of sit there and quiet, and you get up and say, my client had nothing. You heard how little his name was mentioned in this entire case. He had nothing to do with it. He wasn't in a conspiracy. Find him not guilty. That'd be the only way that I would necessarily want to be there with a co-defendant. I could not believe that Mark Means, once again, from a defense attorney perspective, why would you agree to that? Why? You always want to be able to point the finger at somebody who's not there to defend themselves. If you're going to go with a theory that I was put under this spell by Chad Daybell, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I didn't hurt my kids. But if I did anything that looked really bad, it was because he tricked me into believing this. And vice versa. If he says that about her, it's like, man, she's a manipulative woman. Look at that. And everyone winds up dead around her. I'm lucky I'm safer here in jail. That's what I would, that's something that they would try to do. But you don't want that person at the table to look at you and say, are you ridiculous? Are you kidding me? Joint trials like that usually do not go well for the defendant unless there's a large group of them. So hopefully that answers your question. At this point, the case, they would move for severance since they've been joined. Let's see here. Ann, this is home office. No, this is not my home office. This is an office in the Reisch, my law firm's office space. We have lots of conference rooms that we moved in here. This is one of 3 conference rooms that we had in this particular space, and we just made it into our little CrimeTalk studio here. Although we could do it, I guess, in my basement, but nah, this is a lot easier. You don't have to clean up after it and stuff like that. So, all right, Mish, that's great. Something. Have you ever taken a case because it was a horrible crime, yet you felt like you couldn't defend them? No. Terry, no. Lots of people, I get that question all the time. How can you defend those guilty? You are not there as a defense attorney condoning the actions the client either did or allegedly did. You were there to protect their constitutional rights. And no matter what the crime, how heinous it is, everyone is entitled to a defense and a defense attorney when they go to court. Somebody is going to do it. Now, if attorneys say, hey, I can't do this kind of case, they'll say, I can't do it. I've never run into that particular case. I will, I'll represent anybody. As long as we don't have an ethical conflict, we'll do it. I once used to get referrals, quite a few referrals from an attorney that would not take drug cases. And I'm not talking about people accused of drugs. His daughter passed away because she was addicted to drugs. He could not, in good conscience, take, and at least he was aware of it and knew that he would not take people charged with distribution of drugs. He felt so strongly that was, some part. Obviously, his daughter had her own responsibility, but he felt that, these drug pushers, he'd say, they're drug pushers. I cannot effectively represent them. So I'm not going to do those cases, but I will send them to you, Scott. I get that. So, yes. I've never had a case that comes up. There's some, it's like, wow, this is not good. We may be the most hated guy in the courtroom if we're there. But guess what? Everybody's entitled to defense. And frankly, I kind of like, representing the underdog. I really do. And maybe the client's not going to go away to prison for the rest of their life, or if they are going to go to prison for the rest of their life, at least you made sure the process worked. And if they're going to get a conviction, you're going to make them crawl over glass to get it. And that's not some sort of game that's being paid. That's called due process. All right? Holding the government to their burden. Bottom line. Janet. Do you ever have clients who refuse to pay if you don't win? Well, that's why your fee agreement says the trial fee must be paid 60 days prior to trial, because our fee is not conditional upon winning, okay? No one can make a promise or guarantee that they're going to win. Now, sometimes do clients pay all their stuff in full? No. Sometimes even if you win, do you still have to chase down the money? Yes, you do. Is there anything more annoying than having to chase down clients where you have a good result, a great outcome? No, nothing is more irritating, but somehow, out of sight, out of mind, they got what they wanted. They probably already paid you too much, so, shouldn't have to pay them any more. Yeah, you do, because that's what our fee agreement applied for, is there for. So everybody knows what it's going to cost or how we're going to get paid. And, then the question is, do you chase them down? Sometimes, you're going into it. You haven't got all your money. You probably won't get all your money, but you do it anyway. But yeah, that's it's so frustrating. It is so frustrating. I do not know why it is. And I was having this conversation today. Let's just say I have a client that the county is still sending him a bill. And he responded by saying, Scott didn't deserve the money. He's been paid already. And again, once again, it's the rule. Someone told me this great rule. It said, if it's going to feel good to say it, don't. Well, I said it anyway. Said you got a great result. It was not heard of. No one's ever got a good result like that when they've been similarly charged. You didn't go to prison. You didn't get a felony conviction. You are welcome. Now, please pay your bill. Like I said, it just irks me to no end. Linda, Scott, would you have Kay Woodcock on as our Patreon guest if she is in the chat next week, if she wants to? I think some of the Patreons would like to have her as a guest. I would certainly be willing to have her come on and speak with us. Definitely. Certainly that would be her choice. I don't know if somebody has good contact information for her, but she could be the guest. Hell, we would make her an honorary Patreon member as well if she was willing to do that as well. Everybody wants justice in every case. That's what people want. Sometimes the court's not where you're always going to get justice, but and we talk about the case. We try, I think we're very fair. We've tried to say, this is what the defense should probably try to be doing. This is why the attorney's no good. I like Mr. Wood. I really do. He seems like a guy you could probably sit around and chat with. Just seems like a reasonable guy. Been on both sides, prosecution and defense. Seems very realistic. I don't think he's he hasn't overcharged the case. He hasn't charged something he doesn't think he can prove. That's usually a sign of a very straightforward DA, and he is going to, he's turning over everything he has to. He doesn't look like a guy that's going to cheat and play hide the ball, at least from what I can tell. I hope I'm not wrong, but if I am, I'll say it. Rachel, have you ever had to defend another lawyer? Yes. I've represented lots of professionals, lawyers, doctors, dentists, you name it. They all get in trouble. If you think they don't, no. Mama Pink, have you ever lost a death penalty case? No, only had one death case that started off death penalty, and we were able to convince them beforehand not to go death. I think I've explained that story, but maybe not. But it was a case where we did something no one had ever done before. We went and videotaped, interviewed people associated with the case to show basically why our client didn't have any shot in life, basically. And that's what his brother said. It was a great video. And we presented it to the district attorney. He said, wow, that was really good. I've never seen I've never seen somebody do that before. Usually I get a letter from mom and they have a old picture of their kid and say, oh, this is my baby. This is my baby. Look what it looks like. It's a baby. Don't kill him. And we did this. And the DA told me, he called me up a few days after Christmas and said, I remember I was on vacation in California and I kept waiting for the day. He said, I'll get in touch with you after Christmas. He finally called me and said, we're not going death. Now, we didn't win at trial. Case is still up on appeal. I think a great issue, but, we'll see. So, question, if a person admit guilt, at what point can they change their mind? Well, Ann, good question. I have clients all the time that have confessed to crimes and they say they want to go to trial. I've had clients confess to crimes, have it be on videotape and say, we're going to trial. And usually because there's no good offer in the case, it's life is life one way or the other. You might as well go make an appellate record and see if you can, come up with some error along the way. There's a meme out there that floats around that it's got a defense attorney. It's a billboard. I don't know if it's true, but it's a great meme. It says, just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. It's kind of tongue in cheek, but it's kind of the truth. Just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. Bottom line, right? Only matters what the government can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. So if they can't prove the case, you're technically not guilty. Kirsten, paying for my divorce attorney off was the best feeling ever. Yep, I know the feeling. Let's see here. Rachel, having to hire an attorney custody for the first time, it's nerve-wracking. It is. Make sure you go and talk to the attorney. Make sure you feel comfortable with them. Look for somebody that's not going to make you promises and, tell you. Usually an attorney is going to tell you the bad as well. If all they do is tell you the good and that this is an easy case and, yeah, be skeptical. Most of the lawyers are going to tell you, hey, this is the way it's going to turn out, and it's usually not always perfect for you. If it was, you wouldn't need the attorney. You wouldn't be going to court. So that'd be my advice on that. Rachel, my daughter's is pregnant and the dad is threatening her. Well, Rachel, she needs to call the police. Don't mess around with that. What's your opinion on bail bondsmen? What's We don't have that in Scotland. All right, Raven from Scotland. And it seems a bit crazy to be able to buy your freedom, even if only for a small time period. Well, everyone's entitled to bail under our constitutional system. There are some people now that don't think you should even have to pay a bail bondsman. I can tell you here in the state of Colorado, the bail bondsmen are basically, they're run by the insurance companies. It's the insurance companies. They're writing an insurance policy. They're taking a bet that somebody's going to show up for court and they're going to get collateral for it. But a lot of people don't like bail bondsmen. And you know why? Because a lot of them are scumbags, okay? And they've cleaned out a lot of them here in the state because it used to be anybody could be a bail bondsman. Then they had to be licensed. But there were people that had gone to prison like for murder charges that could be bail bondsmen, even though they're licensed. You couldn't get a job cutting hair, but you could be a bail bondsman if you had that conviction, okay? Different story about people being able to get occupational licenses. Well, we won't talk about that, but it just shows you some of the clientele that was drawn to bail bondsmen. And there were some very good ones. I have one bail bonds person that I refer people to. She is great. She is honest. She'll tell people, stay in a little longer, see if, Scott can get the bail reduced so you don't have to pay as much. But let's say, for example, you have a $100,000 bond. You can either post $100,000 cash. Most people can't do that. Or you can go through property. You can post property. So if you have a $100,000 bond, usually they want 1.5 times that. So you have to post $150,000. Has to be based upon the assessor's value, and basically it's just a pain in the ass and nobody ever does it. The third option is that you use a surety, a bail bonds person. Can't use them in federal court, but in state court, it's very common. And you go to the bail bonds and say, hey, I have a case. I have a $100,000 bond. Will you please get me out? First thing the bail bondsman is going to say is, well, do you have any money? Sounds just like an attorney. But the bail bondsman industry is, run by insurance companies. So they say, okay, we can get you out, but I'm going to charge you a premium. And that premium is usually going to be 10%. And we'll use that number. Sometimes it's lower on bigger bonds, but we'll use that number for easy numbers. $100,000 bond, 10%. So you have to pay the bail bondsman $10,000. And you have to have collateral for that $100,000. So who has $100,000 worth of collateral? Well, maybe somebody with a house. Usually it's grandma and grandpa, right? Bail bondsman wants that $100,000 in equity. Why? Because the bail bondsman is going to go post your bond, and then when the person gets out, they're going to come over and fill out all the paperwork if it's not done beforehand, and they're going to have a promise to appear to court. And if you don't appear in court, the judge is going to issue a warrant for your arrest, but the judge isn't going to send anybody out looking for you. The bail bondsman is, though. All right? The bail bondsman is going to send out bounty hunters, and they're going to find you. And then they're going to go to the people that co-signed for your bond, the ones that put up the house, and say, hey, where's little Johnny who jumped bail? Because guess what? If I can't find him within the next 30 days and the judge tells me I have to pay this $100,000 bond for his failure to appear, I'm coming to take your house. You're going to be on the street. So normally they get in contact with little Johnny. They know where little Johnny's hanging out, and little Johnny will come back, or they'll offer to pay the bail bondsman. I've had clients who say, listen, get me out of here. Here's the bail bond. See ya. So yes, people can potentially buy their freedom, but they don't show up for court. There's a warrant for their arrest. So unless they're leaving the country, they're more than likely going to have another run-in with the law, and they will be returned to where they need to go. But the $10,000 that the bail bondsman takes, they don't get to keep all of that. Usually they have to run their office. So of that $10,000, probably 35%, so $3,500 in our example, goes to the insurance company for their fees and costs. Then they got overhead. Bail bondsman probably on that $10,000 bond maybe puts $3,000 in their pocket. And if they have to hire bail bonds or a bounty hunter to go chase you down, they have to pay for that as well. And then they also have what they refer to as a buff account, which is it's a percentage that goes in. It's like a slush fund that if people don't have bonds, they basically have this pool of money that they can go to and pay out on it. So hopefully, Raven, that explains bail system here. You have a constitutional right to bail unless it's like a murder case. And in today's world, hell, everybody gets a PR bond. We've talked about that on the show. These literally revolving door because people think that it's unfair that somebody should be held in jail because they're poor and that they cannot post a bond. And I get it. We've all had clients that are like, Judge, they can't make the bond. I mean, and then they're in the situation where they plead guilty to get out of jail so they don't miss work. They don't lose their job. They don't lose their apartment, all their belongings. It happens all the time. Not so much more. Everybody gets a bail bond or a personal recognizance bond. But what comes with that? Supervision, right? Sometimes an ankle monitor. Sometimes a monitor for drugs and alcohol, which is referred to as a scram monitor. So the people are basically on probation, even though they haven't been convicted of anything. And guess what? If you're having somebody supervise you by the government, that means you're paying for it. There are exceptions to the rule. If you're indigent, they're not going to make you pay for it if you don't have any money. But if you have some money, some resources, they're going to make you pay for the UAs that they're going to have you take, the GPS ankle monitor scram unit that they're going to put on your ankle. All those things are going to come at a cost, all in the name of rehabilitation. And it's not punishment beforehand. You haven't been convicted of anything according to the courts. Let's see here. Let's see. Let's see. Look for battered women organizations. Yeah, I think all you have to do is if your daughter's in fear, first of all, call the police. If she's concerned about the safety of her daughter, there's so many women's organizations out there. Thank goodness. They will make sure that she'll have a safe place to stay, and that no one will know where she is actually being held. Kirsten Scott, the 8 Ball, referring to last week, was being as shady when it said was there going to be a peaceful transfer of power. Laugh out loud. Well, I don't know. We'll see. We got the impeachment starting next week. Apparently there was discussion that the president was still trying to assemble his team because a lot of the attorneys quit. Apparently, I've seen a couple of stories. One said it was because they wanted to. The president wanted, now former President Trump wanted to rehash the election. They didn't want to. Turned out it was a financial thing. Apparently a fee was negotiated for one of the attorneys, where originally I thought it was going to be about $250,000. Then to get the resources needed for the short amount of time to do the research and writing that needed to be done, it was up to $3 million. And the president said, I'll pay you $1 million. The guy said no, and that was it. I frankly would have taken the $1 million just to be a part of history for sure. Who gets, listen, this is now my third impeachment being alive. I remember when Clinton was impeached, Trump now number 1, and Trump impeachment number 2. Who would have thought about that? 3 in my lifetime. I think they're becoming a little too easy to do. And there's, I think, a very interesting constitutional issue. We're not going to get political, but I think on the constitutional aspect of it, the mere fact that the Chief Justice, who is required under the Constitution to preside in the removal of a president, saying he will not participate, lends some credence to the argument that there is not jurisdiction to impeach, and that the articles of impeachment weren't sent over until after he left office, and the whole purpose of impeachment is for removal. I think it's an interesting argument. I think that's going to be the argument that the attorneys for the president will do. And I think if you look at the true threats case law, we talked about this as well. There is a case from the late 60s. Watts is the name. And in that particular case, yes, United States versus Watts, in that particular case, the Supreme Court said that for a true threat to be communicated, it has to be a specific statement to go do harm to somebody now. If someone was to, go beat that person up right now, that would not be protected free speech. That would not be protected under incitement. But the Supreme Court said it was, because in the Watts case, in that particular case, the Mr. Watts was a Nazi, and he was out making derogatory statements saying that people should go beat up Jewish people and Black Americans. And he was charged, and the Supreme Court said, nope, that's protected speech. It wasn't a true threat. It wasn't an immediate call to action to go harm somebody. So we'll see. Like I said, I'm not going to get political. I'm just telling you, I think it's very interesting from a constitutional perspective. There are some people that say, yes, he can still be impeached, even though he's not a sitting president. They cite to one case, it was a Secretary of War, but he resigned. I think the biggest thing that shows probably no jurisdiction, and hey, what do I know? I'm just a guy sitting here, but the fact that when the Constitution says the Supreme Court Chief Justice will preside, and he says, I'm not participating in this, that kind of tells you that he's saying, I have no rule. There's no jurisdiction. There's nothing for me to do here. Impeachment is to remove somebody. He's no longer in office. So, we'll see. Let's see here. Kirsten got DUI, unaggravated, 7 days house arrest. Hank Amano just made the best out of it and cracked jokes on Facebook about myself. Yeah, and it's expensive. It's always about the money. Did you feel as though you were rehabilitated after that in any way? I don't know. So one thing I miss most from the military is at sentencing, you could say, yes, they're entitled to the maximum punishment or no punishment, letting the conviction be punishment in and of itself. I don't think, people being on probation necessarily deters them, but people are going to do what they want to do. Let's see here. Let's talk. Are you getting a new one? We need to order a new one. Can we do that tomorrow or whenever? Soon. We need a new one. The little water's getting low. This thing's about 15 years old. The magic 8-ball. Guess we can start asking what should be the question for this week. Yeah, I'm not getting into the political stuff. I just think from the constitutional issue, I think it's very interesting. And the question is what if they do impeach the former president? I think you can go to court and say, this is not what the Constitution says. Hey, Judge, Supreme Court, you didn't even participate and you were supposed to. So it's not even a valid issue. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not getting political. I just think from a constitutional perspective, it's very, very interesting. And it looks like it's going to be kind of like last time. They know they don't have the votes, and unlikely that he will be convicted or removed. I mean, like I said, he can't be removed. And it's like, oh, well, I guess, he's barred from office. Well, guess what? He can go run for mayor. He can go run for something, and he'll have a case in controversy that he can say, have the courts look at it. So let's see. I thought I was okay. I rarely drink. This is go back to Kirsten. I made the comment that, did you feel rehabilitated in any way? Scott honestly thought I was okay. I rarely drink. It was kind of a life shock that it even happened. I haven't really drank since then, and that was like 3 years ago. Yeah, so maybe it had a deterrence effect on you, I guess, for sure. Maybe you just didn't drink. It was a bad day. Have seen that all the way. Doesn't Dwayne, the dog Chapman, work out of Colorado? Have you ever refer to him. Dwayne the Dog Chapman is from Colorado. He was living in Hawaii at the time. He has a shop, I think, in Sheridan, Colorado. I think he's got like a gift shop or something. It's like the Bounty Hunter store in Denver, I think. And yeah, it's in Sheridan, Colorado. In Edgewater, Colorado. 2547. He has a shop here. I don't think maybe used to, I guess. But he had a shop here. He was born here. I know the attorney that has represented him over the years. You know, for those people who don't know, Dwayne the Dog Chapman. You know, he'd been to prison. I think he was in prison for it was some sort of assault or homicide case or something. But he got out, you know, did well for himself, and you know, looks like he's about 150 years old. I mean that in the nicest way, though. But yeah, he's originally from Colorado. Oh, Terry, ask if Biden's going to live through his presidency. Well, let's keep it legal related. How's that? Although that would implicate the 25th Amendment to the Constitution, wouldn't it now? But we're going to try we're not getting political. Okay? 8-ball. Will K. Vallow Woodcock call next week? There you go. That's a good question, Mama Pink. There we go. I like it. Listen, you know, and people can call in. 725-228-TALK. 8255 725-228-8255, and we can have a conversation. It doesn't have to be me just talking. We are just a harmless little fuzzball. We're not going to hurt anybody. We've always been nice, polite, respectful to everyone, and I think we've always had some good conversations. I think it'd be good. Terry, have you ever felt the need to carry a gun? Yes. Not necessarily a specific threat, but I had my concealed carry, and then it was on my calendar, and although it's ultimately my responsibility, I asked somebody to tickle it on my calendar, and it didn't tickle, and then I moved and have to go to different jurisdiction, so I haven't got one, so I haven't carried one. The problem with concealed carry is when you go in and out of courthouses all day is you can't carry it. So you have to leave it in the car, and I don't want my car to get broken into and somebody steal a gun. So that made it very difficult to do. But I've never had a need like, oh, I'm so worried about a client or anybody along those lines, you know, doing stuff. But, you know, let's just say things can be strategically placed. If someone were to do something stupid, we know how to take care of the situation. Yeah, well, I think you know, Kirsten's saying she felt like buying a gun. She's pro Second Amendment. I think you should exercise all of your constitutional rights. Why would you give up your constitutional rights in any way possible? You know, you wouldn't give up your First Amendment rights. Why would you give up your Second Amendment rights willingly? I know I need to renew it. It just hasn't been my high priority. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can always, you know, Rachel, my husband gave me one for Christmas. We have an open carry law in Arizona. You can always open carry. I prefer to conceal carry, but and the gun range is fun. In fact, we're going, the lovely Miss Kristen and I are going skeet shooting this weekend. Haven't done that for a while, although we went in Hawaii, and let's just say somebody was a little better shot than me. Somebody shot like 8 of the little skeet clays in a row. A little embarrassing. Fortunately, I have a very strong personality and not a shallow, fragile ego, and I was okay about it. So, Kirsten, I'll forever be an introvert to call, but I hope other people do. Well, you should really have no worries about calling. You're amongst friends. It's our Patreon group. It's a little Patreon family, so to speak. No one's going to say anything bad. There's no really crazy questions. We had a lady call the other day. I have to look at my notes, see who called. And she was asking something about, all the conspiracy theories regarding to Chris Watts. And I didn't, I came across as like, are you, yeah, she was asking like, kind of explain it. But it was good. I thought it was a good conversation because it just shows there's so many people out there that still believe Chris Watts was innocent. So yeah. So yeah, and going skeet shooting, it'll be fun. What's your favorite thing to eat? My husband has his culinary degree, and he just threw that at me to ask. I'll be honest with you. Seafood and steak is my favorite food. That's what I love the best. What was that fish? The sole or the one where where they slice it at the table and it's like super thin. Dover sole, wasn't that it? Dover sole, so good. Crab legs, can't go wrong with that. And if anybody knows Joe's Stone Crab, not Joe's Crab Shack, Joe's Stone Crab. The mothership is in Miami, and I've been to the one in D.C., Chicago, and Las Vegas. And the one time that I was there, I said, now I have been to all 4 locations, and they gave me the little Joe's Stone Crab, little bedazzled crab. I wear it with pride because you can order it. It's great stuff. Not Joe's Crab Shack, Joe's Stone Crab. Stone Crab. It's the best ever. Sylvia, yeah, he said I tore her up. Well, but I did it in a nice way. Yeah, Dover sole's very good. Yeah, open carry creates issues. If you're trying to, I get it. And if I was out in the middle of the country and had a sidearm strapped to my side, you want people to see there it is. I get it. But in today's world, it freaks people out. I'm not sure why. Police open carry. I don't get freaked out when I walk by a police officer. I don't get freaked out by their gun. Rachel's going to Alaska next month, going to eat some crab. Can't wait. That's the only state I have not been to. It's on my bucket list. We're going to get there hopefully this year. I can feel it. Even if it's like a 3-day, 2-day trip, we're going to go for sure. It must be okay then. He said you must be okay then. Yeah. All right. Well, what else do y'all want to talk about? It's your show. They want to see the dog again. That's probably it. Mama Pink from Vermont. I used to open carry. All right. Let's see if Miss Vallow will come on our show. Let me get her right name. I want to make sure I pronounce it correctly. Miss Wolcott, right? Yeah, we can do that. All right. Yeah, Kay Vallow Woodcock. Do you think that Kay Vallow Woodcock would be willing to come on and talk with us on a regular Crime Talk or even our Patreon? That'd be even better. And the Magic 8 Ball says... Ooh, it says very doubtful. That's what it says. Maybe she doesn't want to come up. Maybe we can prove the Magic 8 Ball wrong. Yeah, Miss Woodcock. Can you tell us what your best closing argument was? Oh. Let's see. Everyone wants to see Miss Winnie. Can Kristen hold the dog in the camera? No. She doesn't like to get on the camera. Best closing argument. Wow. I don't know. Whatever the last case I won, every case where I got a not guilty, that would be my Yeah, exactly. Sylvia, the ball needs some water. We need a new one.
Yes, sir.
We need a new one. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, the lovely Miss Kristen doesn't like to come on camera, although I've told her I think she should do Miss Kristen's Closet, the lovely Miss Kristen's, the TLMK closet. And she can like do an unboxing of her shoes and purses and things like that. But she doesn't want to do anything like that. Let's see, you see my question? BCHBKC. Let me go back here. Sorry, sometimes these go by fast. I'm sorry, I did not. Could you ask it again? BCHBKT. Sorry about that. I'm sorry, I didn't see it, and I don't see it as I'm trying to quickly scroll back through here. I do not. Do you ever have a case that just stays with you after it's done? Yes. Which one do you think?
The man, the police showed up and you were standing there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You're talking about the one where it didn't end well for everybody? Yeah. That would probably be the one that just really bugs me. I had a client, I'll never forget it. I was in court down in Douglas County, and I got a call from police saying, hey, you represented this guy. Yeah. Well, there may be like a police standoff situation. Would you mind coming up and talking with him? He wants to talk with you. I'm like, okay, sure. Excuse me. So I tell the court, hey, I kind of need to go. Can I get my case called up? This is what's going on. And I drive up there. And they're like, all right, here's the situation. We're going to talk to him. And he, unfortunately, had his son. He was barricaded in a small apartment. And I got there and I talked to him like, hey, it's all going to be okay. I'm doing what they're telling me to, say, not to upset him, all that kind of good stuff. He obviously didn't want to go back to prison. And, I'm just kind of sitting there waiting. And all of a sudden you hear the bang, 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 and boom, and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden the little tent that they had us standing under, they just start taking it down. And they had gone in, and my client was killed. And I think it was alleged that he had also taken his son's life. I think he was like 3 or 4 at the time. And they're like, okay, you can go now. And this is like, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. And, okay. The guy on the phone that I was just talking to is no longer here. Never been my first hostage situation. That was interesting. I guess we'll go back to the office now and get some work done. Like, what do you do? And I hadn't really thought about it one day. I was cleaning out some old files and I saw it and like, wow, it was like, just kind of hit you like, wow. Just shows you how quickly life can change. Scott, have you ever defended a homicide case where no body is ever produced? Nope. They always produce a body. Let's see here. I'm still trying to. Okay, do felonies fall off after a certain amount of time, or do you recommend getting them expunged? You can't. Normally, whether it's a felony or a misdemeanor, they stay on your record permanently, unless it was usually what they refer to as like a deferred judgment where one pleads guilty. It goes away if you successfully complete probation. And if you violated probation, then it becomes permanent. But if it's not that, or you win a trial and you plead guilty to a felony, normally it will stay on your record. There are a few exceptions, usually with drug felonies, low-level drug felonies, that sometimes they will convert to a misdemeanor down the road, but you cannot have them expunged like a juvenile matter. Sealing is You want the case sealed because you're found not guilty. You want the case to go away. Expungement is usually for juvenile cases, but nobody has access to juvenile cases anyway except the police and what have you. But you can't just get a felony expunged. The only way you can get a felony removed is if it, by statute, somehow it goes down to a misdemeanor, normally in low-level drug offenses. Otherwise, the only remedy to make the felony go away is to receive a pardon from the governor in your state, assuming it's a state offense, or the president if it's a federal offense. But yeah, it stays on your record permanently, which can affect you for the rest of your life. Ability to obtain housing, rent. You can't possess firearms, things like that. So yeah, normally can't do it. Torben, my friend, got accepted to school at Denver Law for this fall. Do you have any advice for her? Well, I don't know if things have changed from when I went to school, but plan on studying, reading a lot. Just focus. My advice would be to do as many internships, externships, so that you can get real world practical experience and decide if being a lawyer is truly what you want to do. Don't go 3 years and be hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and decide this isn't what I want to do. Go try and do as many things as you can while you're in law school to figure out what you may want to do. That would be my advice to any young law student going to school anywhere, not just DU. DU is a good school, still expensive. They have this beautiful new law school down in South University. Never been to it. If anybody knows the history of DU, it started out on Larimer Street above a meat market, right around the early 1900s. Then they had a law school downtown, right across the street from the City and County Denver building, just off of Colfax. Then they moved to the old Colorado Women's College that was off of 17th and Montview. And then they moved to this brand new campus down at the University of Denver main campus down South University. I have never been to the new law school. I graduated in 95 at the campus out at the old women's college, and never been to the new law school. Never been there. Never. I've been invited to a couple things, but I've never wound up going, or I said I was going to go and then I canceled. But one of these days I should go take a trip down there. I think there's still some professors down there teaching when I went to law school, and I bet some of them still have never been in a courtroom. But anyway, okay. And if you love fresh lobster delivered, check out Sanders Lobster Company out of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Good to know. I do love good lobster. Lobster, crab, stone crab. It's all good. All right. Well, I think we're going to call it a night. We did the Magic 8 Ball. Hopefully we'll see if we can, maybe somebody knows someone that knows somebody that can have that guest, Ms. Woodcock, join us. That would be fabulous. That would be very, very interesting. Obviously, we don't want to do anything that's going to affect the case in any way, so that's a decision that they would have to make, but they have an open invitation to come on and talk about what they know. Bottom line, we'll treat them with dignity and respect like we do everybody and give them a fair shake. There's no reason not to. I mean, she's, the grandmother of a missing child, for God's sakes. She didn't do anything wrong. She should be treated with dignity and respect. So, all right. Have a wonderful evening, and we will see you tomorrow on Crime Talk. Make sure you go check us out on our daily show as well, and we'll see you next week.